So we are going to be looking at how Nigeria will survive oil prices that might be below production costs. What does that mean for public finance on the one hand? What does that mean for our strategy trying to take care of 200 million people during and after this crisis? What does that mean for the kind of economics that we're going to go for? I mean, just to put it broadly, the logic of the pressure of the time is Keynesian. Government spend your way into getting people to have a life and all of that. But that also has consequence because somebody pays for it eventually. Can mean long periods of no growth because taxes will be high and all of that to try and pay for all that debt. What are the kinds of options that are more appropriate? Although for us, I mean, at least from my perspective, it's more like when do we even begin to produce as an economy? Because we've not been a producing economy, we've essentially just been a rent economy, recycling revenues that come from crude oil. How do we jumpstart a real economy? Okay, are we ready? Okay. And this is Patito's gang. I guess we kind of saw this vision a very long time ago, but suddenly it's upon us and upon us in a very difficult time. Oil and its dependence, or our dependence on it. I very frequently refer to a period in 1982 when Nigeria for 2 weeks could not sell one single barrel of crude oil. In 1979, following the Iranian Revolution, oil prices went through the roof. Again, one of my favorite stories. One day, suddenly in 1980, crude oil prices went to $40 a barrel. Unbelievable in those days. And both Time Magazine and Newsweek had a cover story that said the world over a barrel. A few years later, 1982, things were reversed. Global glut. For 2 weeks, Nigeria could not find anybody to buy its crude oil. We're in a worse situation right now. US crude has gone to zero. In effect, if you're buying it, they're giving you money. You're not paying for it. What is the consequence of this? The receipts that are coming in today from crude oil we sold 2 months ago, we can tide over. But 2-3 months from now, the period from which we can't find anybody to buy our crude, during which the price is probably less than it's costing us to produce, will create new challenges for our economy. How do we revive an economy? That's the challenge that you are going to the gang on. Zeal, you are some kind of prophet in this matter. I know you preach for years that we should find some way of hedging crude oil prices because one day it will drop through the bottom and will. Anyway, like many prophets in our land, nobody listened to you as they've never listened to me anyway. So we are where we said we're going to be. Where do we go from?
Where do we go from here? Well,
yeah.
I'm not sure there's any question harder than that right now. we've made a lot of mistakes in the past. We would, people say, let's not dwell on the past mistakes. But in as much as we don't seem to have learned from them, it's important we bring them up again. We had 2016, 2015, when we had exactly this problem, oil prices crashed. Given how our economy and our foreign exchange reserves are so dependent on a single resource, you will think that once we set our budget for that resource, we would find the financial instruments to guarantee us a minimum price at which we would sell that resource. But we don't do that. We leave it to chance. Unfortunately for us, like you've said, chance has caught up with us. I don't think the average price of our Bonnie lights in the month of April will be higher than $15 to $20. If we produce 2 million barrels a day at the top end, at $20 a barrel on average, in a month, that will give us $1.2 billion of...
Don't forget that the production costs need to be...
ignoring production costs because that production calculation is very contentious, so I'm ignoring it. I'm just talking of purely on cash flow.
Okay.
On cash flow basis, we will get $1.2 billion for the month of April, very likely May, and going forward. From 2019 figures, our import bill, that's our foreign exchange demand for imports for what we've imported, is $3 billion a month. So as it stands now, we're going to be running a cash flow deficit on foreign exchange of $1.8 billion a month. It's going to take us 6 to 10 months, and our reserves would have dropped at least 50%, because I don't know, it's been dropping $1 billion already since October last year. So we're not in a very good shape. Now, the question you asked is, okay, now that we know we're not in good shape, we cannot turn around and hedge oil prices right now. We cannot really do very much regarding the oil flows. But are we doing anything to at least cut our expenses? We're not doing that either. So where your cash flow is constrained, your revenue is constrained, you should be expected that the expenses you have that can be cut should be cut. I've not seen anything in that regard. Instead, barely a month ago, we were talking of borrowing almost $30 billion. In another 3 months, the whole world will accept that it's Q1 and Q2 were negative GDP growth. So the whole world very likely will be in a recession. So who's going to be in a position to be lending us money? We need to be extremely prudent. I'm not seeing that fiscal prudence. I'm not seeing the monetary prudence. I'm not seeing the proactiveness from the central bank. I'm not seeing anything that says it understands what we're getting into and we're shedding some weight. I'm not seeing it yet.
Well, that's an issue that we started discussing the last time that we looked at the economy, and you and Dr. Adele Tariba were on and were really going after this subject matter. Now, it is clear that we've not yet developed the discipline of cost cutting, but we don't have a choice. I mean, last time we didn't manage to do that. What happened was that we ended up with a situation where central bank couldn't meet its obligations. And so we began to queue up to buy what we call essential commodities, to buy milk and sugar. We had long queues in Lagos. We will set up a company called the National Supply Company to help distribute commodities in this country. I mean, some of our millennials don't know these things, so they don't understand what we're talking about. But it was a big, big deal, a big problem. What I like to call the Venezuela way. How do we get away from doing this besides cost cutting? Cost cutting is, and there's no way we can but cut costs. Back in those days, by the way, for that particular one, the last time before that 82 experience, that we had that kind of, volatility that led to that big dip. Ambassador was head of state. They had gone borrowing massively. There was a General Olule who was federal minister. I was called commissioner at that time for finance. Went for jumbo loans. And then suddenly we got to a point where things, Obasanjo reacted to it by saying we need to learn to cut our clothes according to our cloth, not according to our size. That's when he cut down from head of state, everybody drive Peugeot 504 and all kinds of things that we need to cut our clothes according to our cloth. Besides all these savings that we must begin to deal with rapidly, and the last time we argued about this, my favorite thing is National Assembly, of course, a big burden on all of us, but executive branch also, we need to cut by like 40% down or more. What more should we be doing on the production side to begin to produce other things that we can export? But hey, anybody can jump in and give their perspectives on these things. What should we be doing to stimulate the economy besides government spending money it does not have?
If I can jump in at this time.
Yes.
Okay, great. So I think in times like this, there are three key elements. So one is our income, the other is our expense, and I think the two of them will give birth to our cash flow. As Zil has correctly recognized, there is a problem with our cash flow. It means it's either we work on our expense or we work both on our expense and our income. And I think, very clearly, our expenses need to go down. So from the different arms of governments, we need to begin to practice a lot of fiscal discipline. From the income side, I think there's an opportunity there. It would have been a beautiful opportunity if we had started preparing for it before it has finally crystallized. But I think now that it has crystallized, how everybody finds relevance in these times is to see the challenge that the world is facing, see the problem that the world is facing, and begin to ask, how can we be involved in being part of that solution one way or another? So I think there's a lot, and I think this is where CBN begins to need to actively stimulate the economy from creating opportunities for people who are making, who are manufacturing, who are creating value, to be able to give an opportunity to satisfy our local environment that will cut our foreign spend, but also to be able to export to serve other countries nearby that need the value that we have. So I think we need to focus
in an economic environment that is noted for state capture, for rent-seeking behavior. One of the things people worry about in this stimulus, whether it's CBN or whoever is putting money in the system, is who captures it. How do we ensure that it is a targeted area that real growth can come out of, that gets, in a transparent manner, these kinds of stimulus, so that we can record the growth that will come from it and the income, especially if it's going to be foreign income, because one of the things we're going to be needing to deal with is foreign exchange earnings. Again, I like to always be comparative and look at countries that have been in our position and what they did in times past. One of my favorite examples, as everybody knows, is India, and how India was technically bankrupt by 1991, and how they grew themselves out of that by, as if we were unwinding the license Raj and the new investments that flowed in, diaspora and all of that. I like to think of Brazil and how they too went through the reforms under Cardoso that allowed it to begin to produce for export. What should we be looking at in Nigeria that we can be exporting, and how do we stimulate that sector that can be exporting, in addition to providing food security, which is very critical for us,
Well, I think, Prof, you've made a very good point, and this is something that I try to emphasize a lot. When we talk about the dysfunction in the Nigerian economy, and we talk about the fact that we are dependent too much on one sector, which is oil, I like to say that we're dependent too much on the extractive sector at the expense of the processing sector. So the error we make with oil is that we extract a raw material, we add no value, which is processing, we export it, and then we import the processed good where somebody else has added value. But that's not an oil problem. We have the same issue with cocoa. Yep. We extract cocoa from the farm, we export it raw, somebody else processes it, and then we import it. We have the same problem with tomatoes. We extract tomatoes from the farm, we export it, somebody else processes it, and then we import the finished good. We have the same problem with cassava. We have the same problem with human capital. We don't process our human capital through an educational system. We export raw talent. Somebody else processes it, and then they become stars. So what we need to understand is that the value of any economy that grows, that has any value in itself, is that their processing sector is vibrant, aka they are able to use their raw materials, add value to it, and produce finished goods. It is impossible to do that without power. So our focus, where we have not focused on power, you cannot process without power. Our focus is on oil, which tells me that our mindset has not shifted from oil. So no matter what we say, no matter how we empower the agric sector, we're making the same mistake. We're going to the farm, we're farming, we're extracting a raw produce, exporting it for somebody else. So until as a nation, we imbibe into our culture the fact that processing is the way to go.
Let's talk one quick second about that almighty variable called power. I mean, somebody was flying the Nigerian minister on a local flight in West Africa and said to this minister, he didn't know it was a Nigerian minister, I just figured it was a big man from Nigeria sitting next to him. He said, you Nigerians, is there something that's always puzzled me? This thing that you can't manage to get power. Is it that you don't know where GE sells this plant? I can help you buy it. This problem was solved 100 years ago. How can you not solve it? What is this mess about power? For 30 years, we've been forging, fondling, spent billions, and we are still generating less power than we used to generate some 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it is. Until we focus on that, and then we just can't start without understanding that.
Okay, well, let's pause, go to a break, and we'll come back and take on starting from power and moving up. Okay? We'll be right back. Sorry, but Bismarck Rwanda.